Once upon a time, two boys grew up playing hockey in the village of Terrace, British Columbia. One of them went on to play in the National Hockey League. The other became a comedian. Now, one flies planes and coaches youth hockey. The other is still a comedian and owns newsstands. This is their podcast, Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian.
Hello, Jeff. How are you? Welcome to Enjoying Orange Slices. My name is Ian Berg. Where you been, buddy?
I thought for a second there you got stuck on who I was with that new fast haircut.
I know.
I like that. Where have I been? I don't know. I mean, I haven't been anywhere really since last
Have
week.
you been flying at all, or you just?
No, I'm on call. I'm ready to go. I got my track shoes on.
Every time I see a balloon go by, I think it's you.
I know. I guess it's probably a good thing. Guys are up there avoiding balloons these days. We never thought we had to do that, but now you do. I like how someone said, well, we just slowed our radar down a little bit. Now we started catching all these balloons. I'm like, you know,
Is that what happened?
yeah, they're like, we just tweaked the radar. That's awesome. What can you say about that?
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Hey, just so you know, just a kind of a little aviation thing. You'll get some airplanes roll up around 41,000. You'll get the small charter guys that in the real souped up ones that can get up into the mid to high 40,000s. But most of your civil aviation rolls in the 30 to say 32,000 to 38,000, probably somewhere in there. So, you know, when stuff's going over top of the country at 60, it's not that big a deal. But when it's coming over in the mid 20s or mid 30s,
Right.
that is a big deal to civilian aviation for anybody that's out there balloon watching. But yeah, nothing going on. Been just watching some games. Really looking forward to our guest today.
Tell everybody about our guest today.
Well, our guest today, Gary Lawless, Vegas insider, does a Lawless in order in the intermission. He writes about the team on the Vegas website. He's on TV and he does radio as well. So, I mean, he's got an office right down there at City National where the Knights practice. He's part of the organization. So Gary is an ultimate insider as far as knowledge about what's going on, not only with the Golden Knights, but in the league, in the NHL. Was up in Winnipeg. Hails from the wonderful city in Eastern Canada. Peterborough or Ontario. I know some people out there are like, we're Central Canada, but you're in the Eastern time zone, so we're going to give you a little crap about that. But yeah, Cleveland. Those are two great cities. So Peterborough was there a few years ago for a friend's 50th, Susan's 50th. And Ian, you were in Cleveland. So why don't you tell everybody about your time with in the Rust Belt there?
Oh, I just went out and did some shows with the wonderful people of Cleveland. Had a great time. I actually love Cleveland. It's kind of like a little New York City. I love the architecture there. And I was there once during it was St. Patrick's Day when I was there once. And I have never seen drunker people in my life. They were barbecue. I stay in the Hyatt. I don't know if you've ever stayed at the Hyatt downtown, but it's like it's an old office building that they turned into a hotel. So it's got, you know, those like that atrium in the middle.
Yeah.
And people were barbecuing in the atrium. I'm like, what the hell? What's going on here? People are having a barbecue. And it was like 7 a.m. and they were just hammered and kids were running around. It was nuts. Hold on. Pearl's being a
that's awesome. Is Pearl going to be part of the show today, or what you want to treat?
No, she just wanted to sit up. I didn't need to sit up over there. So yeah. So
but you know, Cleveland is a great city. It doesn't get a lot of love, but it's one of my favorite cities ever spending time on the road in Cleveland. And of course, Midwest people, great people. So
do you know what the name of the AHL team was before the Monsters, the Lake Monsters?
Lumberjacks.
The Lumberjacks. They were advertising, and I was looking to get a shirt while I was out there, but I didn't find one.
I'm almost sure. And so that was a great rink. It was Gund Arena, and you'd play in the rink, and you walk right outside, and it used to be called Jacobs Field. I'm not sure what they call it.
Downtown.
Yep.
It sinks into the city. Oh, I love that
So
baseball
awesome.
field. Oh,
And then the
it's
flats.
so good.
Is that where you did your shows down
No,
the flats?
I was closer to Jacobs Field, right across where the Cavaliers play, and the flats is not Wade Flaherty just lying around the city. It is this bar area, and then it kind of reminds me of those old fashioned movies because there's just a strip club in the middle of nowhere, like it's just parking lot and then a strip club with a big neon sign.
Awesome. Yeah, we should get Flats to retire down on the flats in
Down
Cleveland.
on the flats, have his big retirement party on the flats.
Yeah. Well, I already named it after him. So yeah. So looking forward to today's guest, Gary Lawless.
Yeah.
Wealth of information, been around the game a long time, and good guy. And you know what? He rode into town when the Knights rode into town, and he's been a big part of them ever since. Getting knows the players like the back of his hand, and obviously
he's a writer. He's got I think it's it's online. You can find his column, and he's a wealth of information. We're gonna have more information than we'll know what to do with on this show today. So he's kind of like the American, even though he's Canadian, Elliot Friedman. Like him and Elliot Friedman must go back and forth with their knowing stuff. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Anything else we want to say before I bring our guest?
Let's go get him.
Let's say hi to Gary Lawless. Hello, Gary Lawless. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Ian. I'm good. Jeff, how are you guys doing?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it. 2 years of interesting times in Vegas. How does somebody like you that works in the press deal with what's going on? Is it exciting or is it annoying?
In reference to what?
Just the ups and downs.
Yeah, it's I work for the team. I don't hide that. So I want the team to have success. And honestly, anybody that covers any team, like when I worked as a member of the independent press and covered teams on a day-to-day basis, you want the team to succeed because you cheer for the story, right? You want the best story and you want the story to continue. So if the team, you either want the team you're covering to be really terrible so that you can hammer on management, the coach, and the players, and that makes your column interesting, or you want them to be really good because then everybody in the community is paying attention. So I definitely want the Golden Knights to be successful. I work for Bill Foley. That's where I get my paycheck that pays the mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. So last year was fascinating for like so many reasons. And when you truly work for a team and you are inside, you understand what is going on with the group. Like when those injuries piled up last year, it was amazing that they tread water as long as they did. And then it's funny, today's Valentine's Day. Today is the last day that the Golden Knights were in first place in the Pacific Division last season. It's the final day. From there on out, it was the slide down and missing the playoffs. Part of it was inevitable in the sense that the team had played so much hockey. The team, expansion draft is 17-18. They go to the Stanley Cup final. The next year, the shocking loss to the Sharks in Game 7 of the opening round. Then Final Four. Next year, Final Four. Year 5, last year, everything catches up. And you could almost feel it coming. They had played so much hockey. And when guys play that long into the season, people think, oh, they just had a long season. Well, what it does is it delays your training and your ability to rebuild your foundation. Because at the end of the season, and Jeff can speak to this better than me or you, Ian, everybody's hurt. Everybody needs something, whether it's a small surgery or a rehab of a certain part of your body. So that takes like the first month or so to get through that. And then you want to turn around and you want to start to think of, okay, I want to get stronger in this part of my body or this part of my game, or I want to have better cardio or whatever. So then you start to work on your foundation. Golden Knights basically didn't do that for 4 years. And so in year 5, it just all arrived at the same time. And all of those injuries that they had, so many of them were repetitive stress, stuff that had been lingering, stuff that had been hanging around. So then they clean all that up. That last summer, to blessing in disguise, everybody, Stone gets a surgery, Brossoit gets a surgery, Leonard gets surgery, and on and on and on. Eichel has time to come back from what he did. And when they were all together at the start of this year, when everyone was healthy, they were 13-2.
Right.
And then they start to, schedule gets tough. They get banged up. They go through a bit of a skid. Well, now they're healthy again. Their last 8 games, they're 4-2-2, points in 6 of those 8. They've won 3 in a row, but the underlying numbers, like their giveaways, are down to 4.5 giveaways per night. That's like number 2 in the NHL. They're 5-on-5 goal scoring right now over that 8 games, number 1 in the NHL. They're the high danger chances for and high danger chances against, the differential is number 2 in the NHL over that span. The team save percentage has shot up. Like when they're healthy, they're good. And it's all coming back together right now, despite having Stone and now Logan Thompson out of the lineup.
Hey, Grant, you know what, Gary, you make a great point, because I was watching Edmonton, I think it was Montreal the other day, and they were talking about how Montreal had lost all these man games. Well, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4 of total man games since the start, I believe, of last season, last 2 years, they were kind of trying to build a case for why Montreal's so far behind. You got Montreal 1, I think Philly 2, Columbus 3, Vegas is 4. And out of those 4 teams, Vegas has been by far and away the most competitive. But it also brings up another thing that you see on a nightly basis, because you not only write about the team, you're on TV and radio with the team. You see players playing out of place. And maybe explain that to people, because you see NHL hockey just about every night. I know you watch it at home too, but you know this team inside out. You've got players playing out of position. You hear coaches talk about it all the time. Maybe just talk about that a little bit and how that affects the team.
Well, and you know what? I didn't really answer Ian's question. So I want to just go back to that for a second, because I got kind of sidetracked. So again, like last year was a weird thing, and it cost people their jobs. And that's part of this business, and people got traded, and, this team is really exciting and fun to watch because of, Bill Foley has determined that the next thing that he's made billions of dollars, and the next thing he wants to do is win a Stanley Cup. And he's got a formula and a method that he's applied in other businesses that he's applying here too. He hires really good people. He lets them do their job, but he demands results. So it makes for, there's no fooling around here. There's no like, hey, we're going to go through do a 3-year rebuild here. Like it's not really on the table. So it makes it exciting. Last year was disappointing, but also, really quickly after we got knocked out and he got over the shock of not being in the play and the disappointment of not being in the playoffs, started to look at what's the positive here. Mm-hmm. So, I enjoyed, I won't say I enjoyed watching that, but I saw the value in it. And then this year, this team, I'm enjoying watching this team play. There's good stories here. Will Carrier is, got 14 goals now, and is kind of another one of these players who, kind of was left for dead by another organization and is now risen to another level. Chandler Stevenson, another example of that, and of course, all the original misfits. And then Logan Thompson is. It's a very fun story. He's an interesting guy. So I've enjoyed covering this.
Different story than that was going on. What was going on there before? I'll tell you with that. And with the goaltending. So yeah, it's definitely a good story. From what I took from your answer, and then we'll get to Jeff's question, was if Gary's going to be working for you, your team's got to be between 20 and 32, or 1 and 10. He isn't working for you between 20 and 10. He doesn't want the boring ones. He wants
Oh, I
the
don't want that. No, that's for sure. No, and you know what? If you're in the top 10, you have a chance to go to playoff games, and those are the best things to cover, the
Right.
most exciting. Then you can see the potential. Like if I'm a fan of Anaheim, Arizona, Montreal, like Chicago, whoever,
yeah.
you got a chance to get Connor Bedard. That's exciting. That's a reason to follow your team and be invested in your team. Brian Burke says it the best, right? He said, you either got to be working at getting really good or working at getting really bad, because the mushy middle, it's no place to be in the National Hockey League.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah,
I get to remember Jeff's questions.
Yeah, I remember. It's playing out of position. And it's everybody slots in, right? And it's if you're a first line center, that's where you play. Second line, that's where you play. The first line guy gets hurt, so the second line center has to move up. So does the third line, and so does the fourth line. Well, maybe two of those guys can handle that elevation, but one of them can't. And now you've got, instead of having four lines that you have chemistry and they work together, now you only have three. And that means some guys got to play more minutes. They got to play in different situations. That's how injuries happen. Same thing on the blue line. You have one D out. Everybody's got seven. The seventh guy is usually NHL capable. Okay, you pop him up. Then you get that guy gets hurt. Now you got to go to the American League and bring a guy up. And now all of a sudden, instead of Alex Pietrangelo playing 26 minutes, he's playing 30. Well, now you get another guy hurt. Now you got Pietrangelo playing 34 minutes a night. And you're just asking. It's the law of diminishing returns. You're just asking for trouble. You're asking for him to get fatigued, to get broke down, and eventually get injured. So it's having one injury, okay. Having one injury up front, one injury up on the blue line, okay. Once you start to duplicate that and get more, you start to get into trouble. Vegas has the luxury. Right now, they're going down the middle. They're going Eichel, Carlson, Stevenson, Waugh. Well, Howden can play in the middle if he has to. So you've really got five NHL centers, playing at the NHL level. So they're good there. There's guys in the American League that can pop up and play on the wall. And they've showed they've got a depth of defense. Like Miramanoff has been really good. And so is Caden Korzak and Braden Pahal. So Kelly McCrimmon has built depth, but you can only test it so much. And, those man games lost, Jeff. Vegas is fourth in the last couple of years, but you know where they're number one? Last year, those injuries came in their top six defensemen. Like Theodore was out for a long time and Martinez was out. That's in your top four. At your forwards, you're missing at different points Carlson, Smith, Stone, and Pacioretty. So those are top six guys. And then you had injuries to Leonard and Brossoit. That's your number one and number two goalies. So it's one thing to have your third and fourth, your bottom six guys and your bottom pairing D hurt. It's another thing for those injuries to be in your top six forwards, your top four D, and your number one goalie. The man games lost in terms of salary cap, Vegas blows everybody away over the last 2 years.
Right on. Hey, you know what, Ian, you might want to ask another question, but I want to let people know Gary is pride of Peterborough, Ontario, and
I don't know about pride, but I'm from Peterborough. Yeah.
Well, hey, you and someone else from that area are pretty famous dudes and have done really well. And I'll let you guess on who I may be talking about. Who else is from out there? But
Peterborough Pete.
Well, yeah, I guess Pete's from out there too. But Randy's from out there, so we got to get him a shout out because we're talking
Randy Morton. Yeah.
That's right. Hey, so give us a little, walk us through how you kind of got going in what you're doing now? Because you've got the luxury of, you've worked in Canada, you've been all over the place up there, you've written, you've been on TV, and now you're doing the same thing down here. But maybe just let everybody know how you started, and then any similarities or differences you see between working in a Canadian market versus a US market, and just kind of shed some light on that, if you would, for us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I went to, grew up in Peterborough, and, went to college and university in Canada. And my first job was in Thunder Bay, Ontario. I was working for the newspaper there. And, you don't realize when you're going through it that, how great it is and how wonderful it's going to be for you. They had a Colonial Hockey League team, which was basically Slapshot. They had Mel Engelstad was one of the guys that was one of the enforcers there, and another guy named Bruce Ramsey, and they just had a ton of them, and they were a good team. They won championships while I was there. They had minor league baseball. They had a USHL franchise. I got to do a little bit of everything while I was there, and then got offered a job actually in Toronto, working for the Toronto Argonauts, and did a year there, and the team won the Grey Cup. Doug Flutie was our quarterback. It was really fun. Then I ended up in Winnipeg, where my career kind of really took off. I covered the Canadian Football League. I covered the American Hockey League, basically for about 10 years. And then when the NHL when Gary Bettman and Mark Chipman were talking about bringing an NHL franchise back to Winnipeg, I was the guy on that story in Winnipeg. And basically I just wrote about that every day for about a year until it came true. And during that process, a guy walked up to me one night. He became my business partner, and we're still the best of friends, Andrew Patterson. And he said, let's start a radio show. So we bought some time on a radio station, and eventually built that program up and sold it to TSN. We were on the air for 12 years together.
Nice.
And during that process, on the day that they announced that the Jets were coming back to Winnipeg, and they had the press conference, they opened the floor to questions. They asked me to ask the first question. I didn't know I was gonna get that honor. It was pretty cool. But when the press conference was over, excuse me, a gentleman named Paul Graham, who's the executive vice president of live events for TSN, walked up and introduced himself and said, "Hey, I'm Paul Graham. Would you like to be on the Jets broadcasts on television?" I said, "Yeah, I would." And he said, "Okay, you're hired. You work for me now." And I kind of looked at him funny. He goes, "I don't want to see you on Hockey Night in Canada. I don't want to see you." He goes, "You work for TSN now, okay?" And stuck out his hand. And I didn't know this guy from Adam. And it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. I stuck my hand out, shook his hand, and 3 months later, the first episode of Lawless and Order was on the air. And it's been I've been doing that on the second intermission of a hockey broadcast ever since.
That's awesome.
Since May of 2011. So I did. So then I was working I was the columnist for the newspaper. I had a radio show and was doing television. And TSN came and said, "You know what? We don't want you to be on the newspaper anymore. We want you to do everything for us." They made me their national columnist. So I did radio, TV, and digital for TSN. And I kind of thought my life was set. We had a house that we liked that we were going to renovate. We had a cottage that we still have that we were starting to fix up. And I had everything I wanted professionally. And then my wife and I were at the Board of Governors meetings in Palm Beach in Florida, and the phone rang, and it was George McPhee. And I knew George a little bit, but not, I just knew him a little bit. I knew Kelly McCrimmon very well. So George and I talked for about a half an hour. I said to my wife, I got to take this. I walked out of the restaurant and I heard her ask for a glass of champagne as I was walking out. So I didn't want to be too long because I thought it might get expensive if I was out there. But I was out on the sidewalk for about 45 minutes. And we just talked about a whole bunch of things. And he said, told me what they were trying to do and what they wanted to do. And he said he'd like me to be a part of it.
Nice.
And the next day, Kelly McCrimmon phoned me and said, you know, George is serious about this. And I picked Kelly's brain because of how I knew Kelly. And that kind of got the wheels in motion. My third phone call was to the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas. I knew that there was a guy from my hometown, Randy Morton, that that was the president of the Bellagio. I'd never met him, never spoke to him. I knew his wife, Susan. We grew up kind of, she's more my brother's age, but I knew her from growing up. I phoned the Bellagio and I got the front desk and I said, I'd like to speak to Randy Morton. And they just kept.
I said, what room?
They just kept transferring me. And finally I got to Randy's assistant, a lovely woman. And I said, look, my name's Gary Lawless. I'm from Peterborough, Ontario. I think Randy will know who I am. I need to speak to him. She said, oh, do you need a room? If you're from Peterborough and you need a room, I can help you with that. I said, no. I said, I don't need a room. Well, then she thought I needed
town right there.
Yeah, then she thought I needed like a line of credit. So she's like, you know, what's this about? I'm like, look, just tell Randy it's personal. I need to talk to him. And the kind of guy Randy Morton is. Phone rang about 15 minutes later, and we talked for a long time. My daughter is homesick and she knows I'm doing a podcast and she's not supposed to interrupt me, but she's from Canada and she just realized it's snowing outside. So she's very excited.
Very thrilled for her.
So anyways, I picked Randy's brain and he convinced me that Vegas was a good place to raise a family, which no one would have believed. It absolutely is. It's been fantastic. So that's kind of my now the dog knows it's snowing. That's kind of my career story, and that's how I got.
You know what the greatest part of this story is? The first job you just took on a shake and a hand. You just like some stranger talked to you, and next thing you know, a Nigerian prince offered you $1 million. Right. The second one, you did some investigating. I love it. That's maturity at its finest moments.
Well, I didn't have a child. When I know actually my daughter was born. She was an infant. Anyways, no one would listen, look at me. Some guy says to you, we want to put you on TV. You stick your hand out as fast as you can. Don't waste any time on that.
That is awesome. I love it. You can see the kids running outside in the snow. That's great. That's a great story. And how many bottles of champagne did your wife go through watching all these? Well,
no, the champagne probably turned to tequila or something. Because I came in and I said, "Hey, do you want to move to Vegas?" And it was not not received really.
Oh, really?
No. That she's born in Winnipeg. So is my daughter.
Oh.
Winnipeg gets a bad rap, but it's actually
fantastic.
It's actually a fantastic place. We still have a summer place there, and the people there are wonderful. My wife's her father's he's gone since then, but you know he was still alive. Her mom is still lives there. Her two brothers and their families. So my mother-in-law basically didn't speak to me for about 3 years after I took her two girls and brought them down here. Now she comes to visit. So
you got her Celine tickets and she calmed down.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great story. There was a question I wanted to ask you about how things have changed in the sports business where the major advertising is gambling. How does that affect you and how do you feel about it personally?
Well, it doesn't affect me. And
it doesn't because with what you're saying, it doesn't, people don't try to like get information kind of
no. So we sign a piece of paper at the start of every season that says we will not gamble. We won't bet on hockey and that we will not tip. We will not, If someone comes up to me at the grocery store and says, is this guy hurt or is this guy playing tomorrow night? It's not my place to give that information in a private setting. Well, when it's time to make it public, I play a role in that. Absolutely. But, so it doesn't affect me. And look, it's business. You're a stand-up comedian. If Puck Daddy or DraftKings came to you tomorrow and said, we're going to give you $1 million, and at the start of every show, you're going to give the odds to a couple of games, and then you're going to go and do your act. What's the answer, Ian?
I've already answered yes before you stuck out your hand. I didn't get a call from the fee. I already said yes.
Let's not pretend this is something that, like Jeff made a living the hard way playing pro hockey in a different era. But like, wouldn't you rather be a player today where you would have more fun in your time, Jeff? But if you were coming up tomorrow, your kids and their kids, their futures would be secured.
Yeah. 100% on that, Gary. I mean, there were a ton of characters in the game back then. There's still characters around today, but you're right. The dynamics of everything have changed. And the betting aspect of it, what drove people away from putting teams in Vegas, they're now married together, and Vegas is one of the most successful franchises in the league. And it's just a part of the sports culture. There's no question about that. And Ian, if you want to go down another road, I want to talk because Gary's an insider. Is kind of the first insider I think we've ever had. Yeah, and he's a guy that talks to every team. He talks to people with every team, and we want to kind of ask you today, Gary, about we're coming up on the trade deadline and the people out there, and you're one of the people that can speak very educated on this. What is going on? We can talk about who's available, what teams might be looking at them, and then maybe just talk about the Golden Knights and what you see or what you think they could use going into the trade deadline, if anything at all right now.
Well, let's do Vegas first, okay? So, it's all about timing. If Mark Stone is healthy, I think that the Golden Knights have a really good shot to be a legit contender. You look at the Western Conference, even right now, Vegas is first in the Pacific, just a few points behind Dallas for first in the West. So that's without Mark Stone. I think that they're going to have to determine when he's going to be able to return or if he's going to be able to return. And if he's not, then, it's no secret. You need cap space to make moves in the NHL, and you don't replace Mark Stone, but they'll be able to take that cap space and try and add, and I think pieces at the forward position is where they need to go. And I would love them to get a little bit more scoring and a little more pop in the bottom six. And then, a high-end elite offensive guy in the top six if Mark Stone's not available. That's kind of way.
Can you give us some names of what you think would be floating in there?
I'm not allowed to do that, but what I can do is, I can't tell you names that I think Vegas should get, but Timo Meier is reportedly available. Patrick Kane, they're talking about, is he gonna, tell the Blackhawks, go ahead and move me? Is he healthy? He says the health issue has been overblown a little bit. So we'll see where that shakes out. The St. Louis Blues are interesting because they have Barbashev had 60 points last year. He hits like a truck. He can move. That's an interesting player. Ryan O'Reilly, Doug Armstrong, and Ryan O'Reilly are kind of talking back and forth about are they going to work on an extension? And he's the captain of the Blues. Is he going to stay? We'll see what happens there. Tyler Bertuzzi with the Red Wings is an interesting name. And we hear like Dylan Larkin from the Red Wings was out there for a while, but now kind of sounds like maybe he's going to sign an extension and stay with Detroit. The Anaheim Ducks were just here. It'll be interesting to see if Pat Verbeek wants to sell off some pieces there. They've got some of their older guys. You know, Henrique is having a pretty good bounce back season. So there's lots of interesting pieces out there. Timo Meier to me is the class of what's available.
Why wouldn't you?
What's that?
Why wouldn't you with Timo Meier?
Yeah, he's got 30 goals. He plays hard around the net. He can finish. He's got some grease. I know the Golden Knights hate him, like they hate playing against him. That's a compliment because he shows up every night, and he's here on Thursday night. I bet you he has a good game. He always does. He likes to play against Vegas.
Funny enough, I did a show for the San Jose Sharks 1 year before they started the season. I did their preseason event, and he told me he'd love to play in Vegas. I remember him telling me that. I remember, really.
I heard it there first.
He said to me, he goes, "It's so exciting to be in that building."
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. There's this. Some people try and sell this narrative that players don't want to come to Vegas. That's just the biggest load of crap. Every player in the NHL wants to play in Vegas.
Yeah.
They hate playing against Vegas, but you ask a player in the NHL, would you like to play for the Vegas Golden Knights? And they've had 3 beers and no one's around? Absolutely. That's the you got an owner that's motivated, will spend money. It's a great place to live and be, and it's the livest building in the National Hockey League. Who wouldn't want to play here?
3 beers.
Jeff, you played here at the old Thomas and Mack. Imagine now.
Yeah.
Oh, don't do that to him, Gary. Don't do that to him.
I'm having flashbacks.
Don't make him imagine.
And I agree.
I'll tell you when it happened to me. It was 3 beers in, and Thornton was shaving off his beard, and he told me he'd like to play here. So that was that event. So, anyways, so that I think. What do you? Okay, let's move on. Sorry.
Hey, so Gary, one thing I want to talk to you about is question. The Central has been really strong over the last bunch of years, but not as right now. There's some teams that have been historically strong, St. Louis and Nashville's and many, but they're kind of scuffling right now. You kind of have some separation. Colorado seems to be getting their form back. Injuries, they got some guys coming back, even though they still have Landeskog out and I believe Makar. But then you've got Winnipeg and Dallas, who are the class, especially Dallas. And then you got a kind of a mosh pit out west. Tell me who you think, do you think 5 Pacific teams, like do the Pacific teams get in this year and the Central doesn't get the wild card? How do you see that shaking out? Maybe just talk a little bit about what you see in the West as we come down the stretch.
Yeah, well, I think let's just do it that way. Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado from the Central off the top, okay? And then you're going to have Vegas and Edmonton. I think those 2 teams are going to separate. And then maybe LA or Seattle. I don't know what's going to happen to Calgary. So it might be 5-3 or it might be 4-4. If I had to guess, I would say, yeah, you're probably right. It's going to be 5-3 because I think that Calgary's better than Minnesota and Nashville. But Calgary's they're hard to read. Like they go for a little surge and then they come back. And I just have to believe that at some point in time, Huberdeau and Kadri and Sutter are going to figure out how they all need to interact. Because like Daryl's like my way or the highway up until a certain point. I think he's also going to want to make the playoffs. And if beating the same thing over the head, is going to lead to failure, you have to think he'd tweak a little bit. And I think the players at some point in time will be like, okay, let's do it his way, even if it's just for a month, just to get in and tweak their games a little bit. So I think Calgary's got a good team. They were so good last year. I know they lost Gaudreau and to Chuck, but the players they brought in are really good as well. So I can't see them falling that far off the map. Colorado scares the heck out of me because they've just been like, trudging along all year. And then like, are they going to get healthy and get right at the correct time? And is Sakic, what if Sakic adds Ryan O'Reilly or Jonathan Taves or somebody down the middle there because that's what they're missing. They're missing Kadri. They took Kadri out and they never replaced him, and it's really hard to do. But you put Ryan O'Reilly in there, maybe he gets resurgent for the playoff drive.
It is just on those three teams, because I know you know them as well as any. Do you think with Winnipeg's goaltending and Dallas's goaltending, is that enough to separate, or is Colorado's pace and the way they can play and their cup, they're defending champs, is that enough to keep, like, who's scarier playing against, say, a Hellebuck, Ottinger, and those teams if they get going, or a Colorado with maybe on the surface not as strong a goaltending as those other two?
Yeah, Colorado won the Stanley Cup with average goaltending last year, and let's see what Ottinger and Hellebuck look like when the playoffs come. Like they play those guys an awful lot, and that is a fear for me with both those places. Will they burn their number one out? Because Hellebuck plays 60 plus games, and I don't know what Ottinger's pace is, but he's the answer there. I don't like Dallas is a little more top heavy than you'd like them to be, and Winnipeg's blue line is. I say that they've done a pretty good job so far, and they're both they're compelling teams. If Colorado adds a center and they get healthy, I like them better than both those clubs. You
see anything about Big Buff coming back? I know I've seen him on skates the other day. Do you think there's any?
Big Buff is not coming back.
All right.
He does more ice fishing than just about anything right now. He skated for Andrew Ladd at a charity thing in Arizona last week. They're buddies they played in Chicago. They might have played Chicago, Atlanta, and Winnipeg together. So they go back.
Okay. I was just always like, interesting. Is he skating to his ice fishing hut? Is that what he's doing? Do you think you think there's any chance that Sutter gets fired? Is there
Yeah, I thought they might fire him at the All-Star break. I thought they might decide that his style. Listen, I love him and everybody does. Have a good relationship with him. He's a really good man, a good human. He's a tough coach. Hard guy to play with for. Did you play for him, Sharpie?
No, I didn't. I know Busky did, but Busky did, and he echoed what you just said. One of the guys that did play it for him had a great line one time. He says, 3 things are going to happen: I'm going to change, or you're going to change, and I'm not changing. And that's Daryl. And and God bless him, and people love him. But today's player. There's so much more money now, Gary. That right. Think back a couple of years. Matthew Tkachuk, right? He had 1 year left, or I'm not sure they had to qualify him, or he had a year left, and he basically pointed where he wanted to go in the NHL as a young player and said, "I'm leaving there." That never used to happen before, and I think Daryl's done a great job over the years of kind of moving with the flow a bit. But I think you only push him so far, and that's kind of what we're seeing in Calgary right now is. Who's going to blink?
It's great that everybody loves him, but there's 20 people that have to love him, and if they aren't loving him, then it's goodbye, right? So
yeah, I don't think any player has ever loved playing for Daryl. I think players have at the end of the season when they put a Stanley Cup over their shoulders, recognize that he got the best out of them. But you've got to have the right culture in your room, and I think when you're making $10 million a year and it's guaranteed. And you don't like what you're hearing, it's easy to turn it off. And everybody's different. Everybody says they want to win. Who's willing to do what you have to do to win? It's a completely different thing. And some guys are okay with driving a really nice car and having a really nice house.
Hey, Gary, and I know we got to get you going here in a few minutes, but you said something a couple of weeks ago that you used a word I just loved, and you were talking about the Golden Knights, and you said the word stubborn. And you know what? I thought it was so appropriate. You know, they got off to a great start, and then they kind of wallowed a bit, and now they're coming to the All-Star break. They look like they're kind of getting their mojo back. Maybe just talk about how you know, using the word stubborn and why you used it and what you see the Knights having to do to kind of be successful the rest of the way.
They're really talented, and it's like a quarterback who has that $1 million arm, and he looks at double coverage and he says, I can get it in there. And he tries to make that pass and it gets intercepted. Well, the goal, you know, after time, quarterback figures out, I can't throw it through double coverage. But my check down guy's open. I can just go like that to him. We'll pick up 5 yards. We'll get a new, and we'll move on, right? Well, the Golden Knights at times, because they're so skilled, have so much talent, they want to be complicated in the neutral zone. They want to make plays that are really beautiful and high end, but they're high risk as well. So, and when they get caught in that, they turn the puck over and the opposition goes the other way. And it's venom. It kills you. When they get simple, which they do on the road all the time, they don't worry about that fancy play and they dumb it down and they don't play cute. They're really hard to beat. So I think they went through a stretch where they were stubborn about how they were going to do things in the neutral zone. And then I think they realized this isn't working, and because coach can say it whatever he wants. At the end of the day, once the guys go over the boards, they make the decision.
The real questions that everybody wants to know, Gary, is other than Vegas, where's the best place to watch a game?
Well, anywhere in Canada can be pretty fantastic. I don't know what happened there. I got some bugs here, guys. Sorry. Yeah, anywhere in Canada can be fantastic, and I think it's a lot of fun to go to a Hockey Night in Canada game in Toronto or Montreal. Mm-hmm. Ottawa is kind of, it's not as, if they ever get good again and they get that energy back, I think it can be a great place. Winnipeg is a playoff game in Winnipeg, and that small barn is, it's like the old Chicago Stadium. They're right on top of you. Everybody's wearing white. They're all losing their minds. That's really fun. Vancouver's just a beautiful city.
It's a beautiful city, but you don't want to see a game there.
Well, it's a fun place to go for, if you're going to go for a weekend and put it all together. Vancouver, world-class shopping and dining. So Whistler's an hour and a half away. You can and you can get there easy. You can fly direct to Vancouver. You can fly to what's the town just on the other side of the border
Kelowna?
there.
Seattle.
Oh, it'd be a smaller place. It'll come to me, but in between Seattle and Vancouver, it's Allegiant flies there. Small airport.
Oh, Bellingham.
Yeah, it's really
Ellis Fair Mall.
Yeah, you zip in there and rent a car, drive over the border, and it's really easy. Chicago is still a fantastic place. New York City, Madison Square Garden, Nashville. The new rink in Detroit is like a museum. So, and the Wings are going to be good pretty soon. So that would be, that's an interesting place. Boston, Philadelphia. I love the NHL. I love hockey. So for me, there are very few bad places to see a game.
Gary, last one from me. What is it?
I'm not in a rush, by the way.
Okay.
I don't know what your time length is, but you don't have to hurry on account of me.
Okay. Hey, what's it going to take for the team in Phoenix and the Arizona Coyotes to turn the corner? Tell us a little bit about what it's like to watch a game there and what you think has to happen or what is happening for that team to kind of start to rise up out of the ashes and be along the lines of the majority of the other teams in the league.
Yeah, well, if you go back to when they started, to when they first moved from Winnipeg to Phoenix and they played downtown, they shared the facility with the basketball team. Like, they had great crowds, they had a good team, and it had buzz. Football works in the suburbs because you only go there 9 times a year.
Right.
But if you are going to buy season tickets to a team, you don't want to have to drive an hour and a half to every game, like there and back in traffic in a major metropolitan. So Glendale was that was a huge mistake. They burned, I don't know, like 20 years. It's really a shame that whole thing happened out there. And now this college arena they're playing in it's a great college rink, but it's only 5,000 people, and they're not really drawing there either. It's not because the team's horrible, right? Like, you have to be pretty good, or have the community has to have faith and trust that you've got a good plan. Well, they've burnt their faith and trust in that city, not the current people. And I shouldn't say they like the people that have worked like that, for that organization have lots of really good hockey people, and lots of them are doing great things in other places now. And there's still really good people there. The ownership they haven't had the right people there. And maybe this is the right group now. They seem to have a plan, but they haven't got this. They still have to have a plebiscite in Tempe, where the people have to vote and say, yes, we'll go along with this. And that doesn't happen until May. And then they have to actually build the facility. And Bill Armstrong is trying to be really bad on the ice so that he gets the best picks and can build. And I think they want it all to happen at once. Open a new building and have a fantastic team that people can get behind. But it's that you got to think they're getting down to their last chances in that community. And I'll give Gary Bettman credit. He's been stubborn on this one and stuck to his guns, trying to make it work. So hopefully it does.
I don't think you can get evicted that publicly and still have the support of the community. You know what I mean?
Listen, they've got some work to do in terms of rebuilding trust. That's for sure. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to ask one more question. 12-year-old Gary sitting in Peterborough.
Yeah.
Does he see himself in Las Vegas with this, going to games? Like you say, you love the NHL, traveling all over North America, seeing games, getting on the Orange Slices podcast. Does he see it? What is he aiming for?
So I was not a good player like Jeff, but I loved sports. Played high school football and basketball and had a great time doing that, but knew I was never going to earn a living as an athlete. As much as I liked watching and playing, as much as I like playing sports, I'd liked watching and in particular reading about them. And Milt Donnell, Scott Young, Jim Proudfoot, Frank Orr, all of these, Trent Frayne, I'm going to miss some, but these are like guys that I got to get up and open the newspapers in Southern Ontario and read about. I loved doing that. And at a certain point in time, I decided that I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and my brother is a lawyer. And I went to visit him when he was articling, and he was in this little closet they called an office, and he'd been there since 5 a.m, and he was going to be there till 10 at night. And there were all these files on his desk. And I'm like, that doesn't look like any fun. So I decided I was going to be a sports writer. And my goal when I got into the business was I wanted to be a beat writer covering an NHL team, and I wanted to live in the US. I wanted to cover a team, somewhere in the US, and then have a cottage in Ontario to go back to in the summer. And now I live in the US and cover and work and talk about a team in Las Vegas, and go back to Manitoba for a stretch of the summer. So parts of the plan were there. The Las Vegas part, hell, when I was 12, I didn't expect I'd be in Vegas when I was 40.
Right.
Like that, all that stuff happened. Like, I went to the Board of Governors meetings when they announced that they were giving Bill Foley the opportunity to investigate, to have a season ticket drive. I had my doubts. I was like, why not Quebec City? It just seemed, you know what I mean? I'll give Bill credit for the vision that he had and the team that he put together to help execute it. So the answer is I wanted to be doing something, writing and talking about hockey. I did not know it was going to be in Las Vegas. That's for sure.
And that's awesome. That's great. And is there anything you'd like to say to Randy Morton?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I don't think you heard that, but you can say it again. Gary, I got more last questions, but I'm curious to get your take on, is the NHL good at 82 games, or do you think less is more?
Oh.
And if we take the money equation out of it, because we're at 82 for money and the rest of it, where's the happy place for an NHL regular season schedule?
Well, travel is tough, right? And it's there's a lot of that. It's bi-coastal now, so it makes it hard. 82 games, maybe stay at 82, but cut the preseason down a couple. Like that's like actually what they're talking about is going to 84 and cutting the preseason down, because 84 works better. The matrix works. The schedule matrix with 32 teams doesn't really work with 82 games, but it works. It works with 84 games. They can make that work a lot easier. I think we're getting too late into June. Like the calendar, basically, the draft happens that last week of June. Free agency is July 1. And there's, it used to be that things would really shut down for a while after that. And now it's, it seems like it's just, there's no gap. And the NFL, that's what they wanted to achieve. Their season never stops. They stop playing, they go to the combine, they go into the draft, they go into spring workouts, and it's constantly going. And that's, I guess, for a business that wants to generate revenue, that makes sense. So, there's enough players. Like the quality of the hockey is still really quite good at 82 games. I think you can get hard on the body, and I do think we go a little too deep into June with our Stanley Cup final.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, it's been awesome having you on the show. Who knew it would snow? Who knew it would turn into Winnipeg in Las Vegas today? So it's been great having you on.
It is howling.
It looks, I can see the trees. I can see the trees moving over your right shoulder. It's crazy. So yeah, that's great. Well, stay safe, stay warm. Thank you for having us. Keep giving Jeff trouble when you see him. Punch Darren Millard, punch him in the Millards for us. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Really,
thanks, Gary.
Have a great day.
That interview was brought to you by Super Deeker. Go to superdeeker.com, get yourself a stick handling system where you become a better talker than I am, and you'll also become a better stick handler. My dogs are fighting in the back. If you have a super deeker, you won't have fighting dogs. You'll just have a wonderful stick handling child. So go to Super Deeker, use the Super Deeker password slices, get yourself a little bit of a discount, and boom, your kid's in the NHL. Guaranteed. Speaking of the NHL, headygear.com, brought to you by Brett Hedican, where you get your backpack, soup it up to make it say what you're all about. So go to headygear.com. We still don't have a code for that because who knows? Anyways, that was a lot of fun. That was a good interview with the old Gary Lawless. What a nice guy.
Yeah, no, Gary's awesome. He's got it. Like I said, and what I really like about Gary is he doesn't window dress anything. He's got an edge to him, and I like that because a lot of people around the game, and I'm probably guilty of it too, right? Trying to round off the edges. Gary doesn't round them off. He tells you how it is, and I was chuckling. We were talking about Winnipeg today, and it is snowing here in Vegas. So I don't know. Maybe where Gary spent a lot of time. You don't see snow in Vegas too often. So I'm sure he's out there throwing snowballs at his kids or his dogs right now and enjoying it.
I love it. I love that we had him on the day that it's all crazed. That it's all crazed with the snow in Vegas when he's from Winnipeg. I love it. I love it. Got a shout out this week, Jeff? You got some shout out?
I do. As you know, it's really windy here in Vegas today, and it's snowing in different parts of the valley. And I thought myself, my shout out today is I thought Spring Zephyr, and you know where that comes from, don't you, Lord Bag? A Spring Zephyr, Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh, who ironically, right, was founded in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So shout out today to Winnie the Pooh because we're talking about Spring Zephyr and all this weather and what we would think we'd see in Winnipeg with snow, but we're seeing it in Vegas. And I just thought to myself, you know what? Windy Spring Zephyr, Winnipeg. Winnie the Pooh was founded in Winnipeg. So shout out to Winnie the Pooh today. One of my favorite cartoons and little books growing up. I should probably grab one. I still love it. So
he had that voice. Thank you, Jim. I can't remember how to do it. My shout out is to Jeremiah Rickert. I talked about him last week. Here it is. I just saw on the Bertcast, and I can't believe you're friends with Jeff Sharples. He played here in Portland for the Winterhawks. He and Glenn Wesley were my favorite players back then. Dale Kushner and Wade Flaherty both played in the Dub from your hometown too. I actually work for the Winterhawks now, and I I'm the replay operator for the Jumbotron. And so I want to put that out there. Somebody hearing me on another podcast and saying, oh, well, I know who that guy is through Jeff. So a big shout out to Jeremiah and to Bert Kreischer, who will be taking me to Winnipeg March 1st. And I'll be doing some big theater there with him. And the night before, I'll be going in for the game and cheering for the Winnipeg Jets. So that'll be fun. Oh,
hey, and yeah, well, love to see the Jets do well. We got a lot of friends there. Of course, number one, we got Flats. And one quick other shout out to our good Sid the Kid, Sydney.
Never heard of him.
Susan's mom, Sydney Turner. A Peterborough reference. I'm going to root that around, right? We got Peterborough in there now. Had a little bit of a health, rough road the last week or so health-wise. She's recovering really well now. So here's a shout out to you, Sid. Love you and hope you're back in Vegas soon and feeling better.
Whenever you hear a woman's had her health problem, I always say, did they get their boobs done? So congratulations, Sydney, on your new boobs.
Love to all.
Love to all.